You're listening to the Woman of Value podcast. You are about to hear the story of a woman who is following her dreams and passions and creating positive change in the world.
So if I were to meet somebody who was the CEO of a company or somebody who had other women who had great success, and I would just start to look at them and say, how many years do you have in your profession? Okay, how many years do I have in my profession? I have probably even more than you. And I'm equal. My level of expertise is equal to your level of expertise. And so once I got the mindset piece of it, then I also had to get the body piece of it. What does it feel like when I'm present and my shoulders are wide and my heart is open? And so it was a whole sort of mind-body experience of really kind of up-leveling myself so that when I meet you with that level of confidence.
Welcome back to the Woman of Value podcast. I'm really excited about my guest today. She is somebody I've known for a very long time. We haven't actually met, but we're really good friends. Her name is Tina Greenbaum, and she works with executives who want to increase their performance level in high stakes, high pressure situations. She's an optimal performance specialist and sports psychology consultant, and her signature program, Mastery Under Pressure, empowers leaders and their teams using cutting-edge technology, neuroscience, energy psychology, sports psychology, and current learning theory. In addition to that program, she also works with CEOs and senior level management as a confidential theracoach on a one-to-one basis. Her expertise in guiding executives through their psychological and personal issues helps her clients cope with the demands that their personal struggles place on them as they strive to be on top of their sector. As she likes to say, the only thing standing between you and your goals is you. Welcome to the show, Tina.
Thanks so much, Sandy. It's so good to see you.
Good to see you.
We've never met physically, yes, but we are good friends.
I know, it's pretty crazy in this online world that we live in. And especially today during the coronavirus, which is happening as we do this taping, pretty crazy times. And we'll get into that a little bit as we go, I think. But let's start with, what does a woman of value mean to you?
Well, the first word that comes to my mind is integrity. Having that as a core value. My husband and I were talking the other day about what I used to be like when I was younger, when I would hit somebody who was unjust or an unjust situation. I still have that same vehemence, against it. I've learned how to manage my tongue a little bit better. But because I got myself into a lot of trouble. It's like, I can't believe that and so. But that idea of truth and justice and fighting for injustice, I think is at the core value of who I am. And what I think a woman of value fights for and stands for, like that.
Yeah, no, interesting. I can totally relate to that level of integrity. And I am curious about how you handle the injustice now that you've learned to manage your tongue.
Well, I go back to always the definition that I use for stress, that I learned a long time ago when I was in graduate school. And it's the perceived amount of control that we think we have or we don't have. So the operative word is perceived. So when we look at the situation that's happening now with the coronavirus and what's in my control, what's out of my control, that is the operative question that I ask all the time. Because somebody else, there are people who are totally freaking out. And it's not like I'm not anxious about it, but I manage that anxiety by coming back to that question all the time. What's in my control? What's out of my control? Mm. And that helps me a lot.
Yeah, totally relate to that. I think that many people who are super anxious are feeling out of control and don't know what to do about it. But being able to even name the feelings and to really figure out what you can do about it and what you can let go of, right?
Exactly. You're right in my ballpark.
Yeah. Yesterday I baked a cake because that was something I could do. It was my son's birthday. It's going to be tomorrow. So I
Yeah.
made this amazing carrot cake and I can't wait to eat it. Because eating
Yeah.
is something we can do.
Yes, you can.
So, Tina, take us to that aha moment when you realized you had to make a change in your life and step into your value.
So you and I were just talking a little bit before that we started taping that there have been many turning points in my life. I've made a lot of changes and had a lot of life changes. But I think the biggest one that comes to mind now is I've moved 6 different times in my adult career. And every single time I've started over and started over and started over. I've built private practices and I did them very, very successfully. Took me, I think the shortest time was 7 months and the longest was a year and a half. And I was up and running and I never really had to, I never had to market after that. And then, but I always had in the back of my mind is like, oh my God, what would it look like if I really lived my potential? Because I was doing private practice, it was one-on-one, and I sort of got I got what I needed to do in order to make it successful, so I could replicate it. And then I got divorced after 34 years, and my children were all grown, and I moved into Manhattan, and I said, now is the chance that I can really do this. And what potential for me was speaking, writing, being visible. I love teaching and I love public speaking and I like helping people. And the more people I can help, the happier I am. And so, but I wasn't really prepared for, God, what that was really going to look like. Coming into New York and starting to market, I had really no marketing experience and other than common sense. You know, who do I have to meet and who's going to introduce me and so on. So I started to hit some walls, but kind of living in New York, I made my way. And then I moved to California. And this growing idea of what would it really look like to live my potential got bigger and bigger. And I started using, imagery and imagining big crowds and, audiences and so on. So from there, from that image to where I was, it was a pretty far distance. And so I started speaking, I started joining women's groups. I was made a lot of contacts. I started my program, this Mastering Under Pressure, and I was getting people who were interested, but it was a very crowded market also. And so people would say to me, oh, I'd love to work with you, but I wish I had met you before this. I paid for this coaching program and that program and that program and that program. And so I started to recognize I was putting out a lot of effort, but I really wasn't getting the response that I wanted. I wasn't making the money that I wanted or really actually doing at the level that I wanted. And so there's a wonderful quote in Napoleon Hill's book, and if I can remember it offhand, it's talent plus passion, in parentheses, plus right association, plus action, plus faith equals personal success. Mm-hmm. So I started to look at that formula, and I know I'm quite talented at what I do. I have a lot of passion for it. I'm very action oriented and I have faith, but what I was missing was the right associations. And I started to look around and I started to join things of people who were further along, and certainly in the corporate world. I haven't worked in the corporate world in many, many years, but people that I was admiring and what were they doing. And so I started to realize I had been working for 30 some years, 36 years or 35 years. And I have a lot of experience. And so, but I wasn't acting as if I had that level of experience. And so I started to look at what I needed to do in order to attract the people that I loved working with. I love working with really big minds, really creative people, people who can have a lot of impact on people. So I had to, what I call, uplevel myself. So if I were to meet somebody who was the CEO of a company or somebody who had other women who had great, great, great success, and I would just start to look at them and say, how many years do you have in your profession? Okay, how many years do I have in my profession? I have probably even more than you. And I'm equal. I'm equal to you. Doesn't mean I'm better or whatever, but my level of expertise is equal to your level of expertise. And so once I got the mindset piece of it, then I also had to get the body piece of it. What does it feel like when I'm present and my shoulders are wide and my heart is open? And so it was a whole sort of mind body experience of really kind of up leveling myself, so that when I meet you with that level of confidence.
Wow, I have so many thoughts. First of all, I love that you kept reinventing yourself. And people don't know you, but you started as a therapist, and working dollars for hours is limiting. And I have helped therapists develop online programs and really expand themselves and take themselves more seriously, because we often settle for the wrong relationships, the wrong jobs that are underserving us, where we're underserving the world. And I love that you up leveled and that you looked at what was the missing piece and the associations. It's just so interesting, because I think we often don't take ourselves seriously enough, and we don't value what we can bring to the world. And I went through a similar process where people were saying to me, you're really under living your life. You're not living up to your potential. Somebody said that to me as I was divorcing, and I was like, what are you talking about? I was so far removed from who I am today. And I think once we get there and then we realize, oh, wow, we actually can make a bigger impact.
Yes.
And it scares the hell out of people. So, let's talk to that for a minute, because I think once you get there, you go, oh my God, now what? Like, wow, I have this unlimited potential. That's really scary. So what do you say to people who have those thoughts?
I think the pieces of when you said I have this unlimited potential and that's really scary, I would start to look at, so what's so scary? What does that mean to you? And for every person, it may be something different. For scary might mean I'm not used to being public, and then I have to deal with that. Scary might mean I have a family, and what happens if I start getting gigs and I have to travel, or I don't even have the kids, but I have a husband at home, or there could be many, many, many things. And so what I love to do, Sandy, which is why I still love the individual piece, which is I love really I like to nail it with somebody. I like to nail, what is it for you? We are all individual. We all have histories. We have backgrounds. We have things we have traumas. We have all kinds of things. And as we get to know ourselves better and better and better and better, then we can serve the world truly to who we are. That we have that history is not a surprise. That we get to know our patterns, and we get to know, oh, there it is again. Oh, there's that fear again. Oh, well, okay, so I know you. I know you're my father, or whatever it is. I really truly believe, even though I love doing big work and group work, everybody has the individual responsibility to get to know themselves really, really well. Because otherwise, that part of us, the unconscious, runs us instead of us running it.
Yeah, and then we go back to control, what we can control and what we can't control.
Right. Exactly.
And we have a lot of power over the things that we name and that we can do something about.
Absolutely. One of my favorite stories on this is when I moved to Manhattan, when I first moved. And again, I had this big idea and no idea how I was going to go about it. And I started joining some women's groups, and there was a wonderful group that's no longer running, but they met at Sarah Beth's on Central Park. A wonderful restaurant. And it was, for me, it was $40 a meal, which was at that time was like, wow. But it was worth it because, I was meeting these incredible women. And I walked in, and there was one woman who was stunning, beautiful French woman, and beautifully dressed. And she says, you must come to the next meeting because I'm the speaker at the next meeting. And I have this thing that I've developed, and I can't wait to share it with everybody. And I'm thinking, I've been in my field for a long time. What do you know that I don't know? I'm really curious, because I love to learn. So I go the next time, and she's dressed again to the nines, and she's got her book out, and she's got her ghostwriter and her marketing person, and they're all there. And she gets up to give her talk. Now, again, there was nothing new for me, maybe for somebody who wasn't in the field. And I'm thinking, like, what does she know that I don't know? Really? And it's like, okay, big shot, her material is not great, but she's got the marketing person, she's got the ghostwriter, she's got that whole piece, so that was such an important eye-opener for me. It's not just the talent, it's not just the passion. And you and I know we've been in business for a while, and it's not easy. You have to not only reinvent yourself every day, but you have to be your own cheerleader every day.
It's true. It's true. And I think that realization that there are people who are making good money in our profession who
Mm-hmm.
are not more talented, who are not smarter. And I think that motivated me a lot, because it was like, oh, wow, why are they getting all the money?
Yeah.
Oh, they know something I don't know about marketing. They know something I don't know about getting out there, not being afraid to share their voice, so whatever it is, they're doing it. And there are a lot of people sitting at home not doing what they should be doing. And before I did this work, I was an artist, and I remember hearing this about art. And there was a guy I met in Manhattan, I was probably 24, and he said, and he was very well known as an artist, and he said, I am not the most talented guy. I just knew how to I knew how to make art a business.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuck with me. It was like, it's not just about talent. It's really about creating the whole picture, the whole business of it. And we're not trained. We're not trained to make a business out of therapy or coaching, or, the marketing piece is so much psychology. And so how do you market? Like, what do you do now that's different than what you did then?
Well, I understand it a lot better, for one thing, for all the thousands and thousands of dollars that I've spent on business coaching, and I thought, might have gone down the drain, but none of it really went down the drain, because every piece of it was another learning, expensive learning, but another piece of learning. And I think the hardest thing, particularly for somebody who's in our field, coaching or something that is, well, let me look at it this way. If anybody has heard of the Eisenhower time management system, and basically Eisenhower used this when he was a general, and then when he was a president. And you think of 4 quadrants. And so the first quadrant is it's important and urgent. The other one is it's important, but it's not urgent. And the other one is not important and not urgent. And the other one is, well, we have a list of things and maybe we need to get them off the list. So this important and urgent and important and not urgent is very, very critical, because I think what I do, and probably what you do, it's important, but not everybody sees it as urgent, particularly in businesses. They're looking at the bottom line. How do we get to the bottom line, and their own marketing, but they don't think of the personal development side as necessarily urgent. So the hardest thing has been to get the marketing and the branding clear enough that you know exactly what I do and that you want to hire me. So because I'm a psychotherapist, I can go anywhere, truly. If you got marital problems, you got trauma, you got this, you got that, but that's not good for marketing. Mm-hmm. And so what I noticed when I was very young as a young therapist was people had a lot of insight, but they had very little skill. So what do you do in a time like this? What do you do when you want to make a big presentation? How do you go about uplifting yourself? What do you do, when you're in the moment and you're speaking and your mind goes blank? And so I got very interested in, and my kids were very high level athletes. My father was an athlete. So I got very interested in sports psychology. And sports psychology is actually spirituality. It's really being in the moment. It's learning to meditate. It's learning how to calm down the body. Using all those spiritual skills to actually have your body calm so that your mind is clear. And so it started to kind of meld together. And I have a wonderful branding marketing person who is a really great listener. And he would just listen to me talk, and he helped me really put it together. So peak performance for executives is how it has, you've followed the dating, kind of niche, and have branched out from that, but that's how people know you. Mm-hmm. And so that's how people have gotten to know me, is peak performance skills for executives. And it's easier when you have that niche to market, because then you eliminate everything else. Just like when you make a commitment to a man or a partner or something, you eliminate all the others. And that's what happens with the marketing. So the other thing that I learned from somebody who runs an incubator for startups, for founders, he said the difference between a founder and a sole proprietor, and I was a sole proprietor for all these years, was a founder has a team and a sole proprietor goes alone. Mm. And if somebody had told me that, really in that level of clarity, I mean, I always knew that I needed help. And that's how my private practice was so successful, because I always had a team of experts. I had the psychiatrist, the acupuncturist, the chiropractors, and they just kept referring people to me. And so I had to go out and build that team, so that I have a social media person and a branding person and a financial advisor, and all those pieces that make me a grown-up business, as opposed to, and I moved into becoming a corporation, and again, even just saying that I'm an LLC as opposed to my soul is an uplifting, up-leveling piece just for the mindset. Yeah. It's official. It's important. It's real. It's concrete. So again, seeing, just moving the pieces around, and becoming much more. I said, I always kept saying, I want to be a business, and a business has analytics and they have data, and I'm not good at that. So finding people that were good at it, that I could afford. And a lot of times I did a lot of trading with other fabulous, fabulous people that got me started. And then I could start to afford a little bit more. It's always a work in progress.
Yeah. And so I just want to speak to a few points you made, which I think are excellent. One is that we have to have support. And I think whether you're in business or just living your life, we have this fallacy that we have to do it all alone. And many of us were modeled that at home. You just do it all yourself, and you're exhausted and a little pissed off. But
I'm good at it.
That's right, damn it. So, and it feels like a weakness if you have to seek support. And we can't do everything really well. And I think we were raised in schools where we're supposed to get straight A's in every subject. And I always said my kids, I didn't care if they got straight A's in every subject. I mean, who cares? That's not what life is about. It's not about being great at science and math and art and history. And, so find what you're good at, and really niching down. I mean, for me, that was a killer at the beginning of my career. People kept saying, find a niche. And I'm like, but I love everything. And that puts me in a box, and I don't want to be in a box. And I went kicking and screaming into my niche. But once you find it, not only can people find you, but your brain is so focused on how to serve that niche better. So it helps to refine your skill set. So I just want to highlight that, because I think people really resist the niche, and they think, well, I don't want to box myself in. Right. So I think, no matter what you're doing, even if you're not a solopreneur, what are you good at in life? And are you really honing in on that particular skill set, and then delegating other things out?
The other piece of it is, I look at so many of my friends who are all retired, and I still have so much passion for what I do. And actually, I want to get bigger. It's not smaller. It's not, and so that piece about really kind of zoning in on who you are and what turns you on and what gets you excited, that's a lifelong piece that will take you all the way through to the end.
Yeah, it's a sense of purpose and passion. And I so agree with you. And the women I know who are in their 70s and beyond, who are working for themselves are not retiring. They're just like not even on the table. There's always something else, and there's a lot of shifts that happen. There's pivots, and this doesn't work, because if you're tuned in, you're going to find, okay, this doesn't really feel right for me, which is what happened to you 6 times. It's let me see how I can refine my skill set and really grow into the potential that I am.
Right. And in order to be able to do that, you have to listen to yourself. You have to, I was going to say, when the stuff starts to bubble, it's like, oh, this is the 7-year itch coming up again. It's time for the next leap, which is, my husband always says, that's trouble. Uh-oh, she's been thinking again, uh-oh.
So thinking alone can be trouble, but thinking and moving strategically through those thoughts is really what differentiates you from a lot of people. I was walking with my son this morning, and he has a friend at work who has all these great ideas, and he's British, and he says, mate, now that we have to be isolated for 2 weeks, I think it's a good time for a creative project. And I have this idea, and then nothing ever happens. It's all like these fabulous ideas, but they're not going anywhere. So
no, there's a wonderful, I don't know if the book, The Energy of Money. I don't know if you've ever heard it. It's a very good, very good book, but she talks about this idea place that, this creative space. And when we take those ideas and we want to put it into something concrete, the action steps, she calls it trouble at the border. So taking those ideas and really being able to run with them and do all the things, it's really the work of a warrior, honestly. I really wouldn't want anybody to think that it's a simple path.
It's not simple. And you're recreating. I mean, I hired back my business coach when I had the idea for the Woman of Value, because I was going into the corporate world. I was really pivoting out of the dating world into really helping women be empowered at work. And I had no experience in the corporate world. I had no idea really what I was doing. I just knew this was really where I wanted to go. And I had to create all new social media, all new everything. And it's like starting with baby steps from the beginning, and it's painful.
Yes.
It's painful, but it's like you just have to bite the bullet and keep doing it and keep going and start to build a following again and let people know you for who you are. And I've seen it in many successful businesses. I follow Donald Miller, who his business is Story Brand. Do you know who he is?
I know Story. I know the name, but yes.
So he has a few businesses now, and he's really expanding, and he keeps changing his tagline according to where he's going. And sometimes I see him pivot back to a different one. But it's good to watch, because you can see how somebody who's making millions and millions of dollars and has a successful business is still pivoting and is still figuring it out and is still putting stuff out there. And sometimes it doesn't work. Right. So what do you do when you have this fabulous idea and it's not successful?
I think, which I was thinking about this before, one of the skills that's most important is mindfulness. And again, this is a big term now. It's very, it's very in, but mindfulness is becoming aware in the present moment without judgment. So it's the without judgment, again, is the most important piece. It's really, you cannot change anything unless you're aware of what you're doing. So one of the things that I do, I meditate pretty much every day, not for necessarily long periods of time, but my day always goes better when I have a morning routine. And when I feel that stuck place, like I want to move forward and I'm not going. And I just stop and I just kind of work with it. Like, what is it? What is, what's not working? Well, I have somebody with my website. I was supposed to have an appointment with her. She's in the Philippines. It's 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. I get 10 o'clock and she doesn't show up. So this is an ongoing problem. What's not working is I just wrote a blog and I need to get it out. And there's things that are messy on my website. So I have a problem. What do I need to do to solve that problem? I need to find somebody else. Okay, so I get busy and I find somebody else. Okay, so if you pay attention closely to what what is actually happening? It's that same thing. I want to move forward. I want to meet these people. I'm not meeting them. You know, I joined an organization that's called CEO Space. And my goal when I went there was, I want to know why my business is not further along, given how hard I work and how good I am at what I do. And so that was the operative question. And I found this business strategist to talk to. And he said, well, what's your 5-year plan? A 5-year, you know, I just kept going forward. He said, no, you need a 5-year plan and then work backwards. Oh, that was an amazing insight. So when I'm stuck, and I'm stuck a lot, it's not because if it's not flowing, there's always something. And even if it is flowing, there's always something. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the business coaches I had, he said, you're in the business of solving problems. Yeah. And that's it. You're in the business of solving problems. You know, if you're doing this woman of value, what are the problems that they have? And then you go in as the expert and you attempt to help them and guide them, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're always solving problems. And that's why this whole thing about managing your stress and knowing how to deal with it is so critical, because the problems don't go away, you know, and the more you reach for something bigger, and that's where scaling out this one person business, like, duh, you know, I know how to do a one person business really well, but how do I make it into a scalable business that I could actually sell, perhaps, when I'm ready to retire. And so it's constantly being able to solve the problems that come along. So managing stress, peak performance, I think these are skills that no matter what anybody is doing, you have a toolbox. You know, oh, this situation comes up. Oh no, now I pull out this one. That one comes. Now I pull out that one. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I'm really glad that you invited me on at this time, because I feel like with the coronavirus, I have a lot that I can help people with. And so there are ways to manage it better than others. And, you know, when you notice that panic is starting to kind of rise inside of you, and really kind of noticing it, you have to notice, oh, this is what's going on. All right, now what do I do about it? You know, last night, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, they wanted to come over, and I'm feeling inside, I'm not comfortable. You know, I started to say yes, and they said, no, you know, we're doing good. We're all doing really well right now. Let's just kind of leave it this way. And so it's being, again, Sandy, so in tune with yourself. It's your greatest guide. That's where empowerment is. That's where control is. Yeah. And I go back again to, Viktor Frankl, Man in Search of Meaning, who was in a concentration camp, and how he managed his mind. That was the only thing that the Nazis couldn't take away.
Yeah, yeah. It's so powerful. And Nelson Mandela, the same thing when he was imprisoned.
Yeah.
It's when you can rise above the external and realize what you can control. Again, your mindset is everything.
It is.
And yeah, I've been talking a lot about the coronavirus and dating, and people are up in a panic and they stop dating and they're like, I don't know what to do. And there's so many things you can do. Mm-hmm. You know, you can connect on FaceTime, and you can get to know people more intimately before you meet and decide whether you even want to meet. It's just like, really, and I think it's great. You know, if it's it's going to last another 6 months, that's going to be another story. But we don't think it's going to be that long. And use this time to regroup. Use this time to step back. No matter what it is that you're doing, there's so much you can do. And, people are cleaning more, they're, decluttering their mind, their rooms, their everything, and I recently had to close down a program that I was working too hard to market it, and I wasn't getting enough people signing up. And I took a hard look at it. It was 3 years in, and I just said, it's time to close. It's time to take that material now and do something else with it. Maybe write a book, maybe create a whole series of videos and sell it, break it down into different courses. Who knows? But there's always something you can do. And most people look at life as, it's happening to me, I can't do anything, I'm out of control. and mad at the world. They all did this to me.
Yeah.
So just taking that time for mindfulness and
yes, and to get out of the victim mentality.
Yes,
That's really, really what we're talking about.
absolutely.
There are certain things, again, I believe that the only true victims are children.
Mm-hmm.
Children get victimized. And once we reach a certain age, no matter how bad our parents were, no matter how miserable our life was, it then becomes our responsibility.
Yeah.
As you have the cognitive ability to, the maturity to do the work, there's amazing, 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 amazing things that we can do with ourselves.
So true. So Tina, let's go back to the present since we're talking about mindfulness, and tell us what you're excited about right now in your work, in your life, what's happening.
What's exciting to me is the people that I'm meeting and the opportunities that are opening up from these conversations. When we started back in business, so a long time ago, it's like it's keeping everything under your chest, and don't let anybody know what you're doing, and people are going to take away your secrets, and you're going to tell them how to do something, and then they're not going to need you, and all that fear-based marketing. I like the giving part. I really like giving, and it suits me. And again, I want to be smart enough that I still make myself valuable enough that people do want to pay me for what I do. But this is a time of giving and keeping it. So I just started a workshop. I have a friend that we're working together, which again, this is the first time I've had a partner in something, who is a branding and marketing fellow. And he has helped me get my message even cleaner and clearer. So I have a new workshop, and I started giving it in San Francisco at the Twitter building the day after they told everybody to stay home.
Good timing.
14 or 15 people that were signed up. I had 3 that came, but the 3 that came were amazing. Were really, really great. And I had it videotaped. And so it was, and I can take this on the road. I can take it online. And that's kind of what I'm getting ready to start working on right now, is taking that workshop. I've got all these beautiful slides and the whole thing. And so I'm always looking at ways to interface what's happening now and what's needed, because if somebody doesn't see that they need what I have to offer, then my marketing is going to fall flat on its face. So it's how can I help you? And I know that I can be helpful, but if you don't know that I can be helpful, or you don't need me at this present time. So I'm excited. I belong to an organization called the C-Suite Network, and it has opened me to a world of incredible people. I'm on a planning committee for something called the World Economic Summit with another fellow that I met, who's a brilliant founder, and it's a global partnership about sustainability and using economics as a way to help the nonprofits, just all kinds of amazing things. We're also talking about going out and creating sports psychology programs for soccer players and professional teams and who knows what. So just finding opportunities where people are ripe for what I do. And the good news for me is I've been doing this for 37 years, and now I'm in mindfulness and meditation and some of the spiritual stuff, which has to be couched sometimes so that I'm not woo-woo, because I'm not woo-woo. The stuff works.
Yeah.
So being able to bring in all these skills, the energy psychology, the sports psychology, the neuroscience, which is explaining so much of the science behind these things. And so that's where it's at today.
Well, it sounds like there's so much going on always, like you're just always thinking and thinking of opportunities and looking to create connections, and also integrating all the parts of you, which I think really, there's like the word wholehearted comes to mind, that you're really, it feels very solid and integrated into your full potential.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
From your mouth to God's ears, right?
Look, I can see it. I'm witnessing. All right. So we're going to go into the lightning round now. Are you ready?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay.
I used to think I wasn't blank enough.
I used to think I wasn't thin enough. That's the first thing. Um, I always knew that I was smart in what I do, but I always thought I wasn't going to be able to figure it out enough.
Mm.
You know, when I hit a problem, so it feels like there's a wall that I
Mm.
have to be able to figure out how to penetrate.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the really big things that I've taken on have those walls. You know, so it's not smart enough, but it's not meeting the right people, not being able to create the opportunities, things like that. That's sort of always the question. I'm always trying to problem solve.
Yeah, yeah, but I think what I've heard throughout this interview is that you've learned to trust yourself enough.
I have.
And
I have. I
that's
used
super
to think when I
important.
was younger, actually, that I was too big. That because I been given a gift of intuition. Really, my mother was extremely wise, and she was a natural born therapist, completely untrained. And so I inherited a lot of her gifts and her wisdom. So I always had that secret. I really know, but I don't want other people to know that I know because I'm going to be too big.
Mm-hmm.
All my friends in college used to call me mother, and I said, I'm not your mother. I'm a friend. But I do have that. People do come to me. They always have with their problems. So, you know, I don't want to be too conceited. I don't want to be too, you know.
Yeah.
So keep yourself small.
Right. Tamp it down. Tamp it
Yeah,
down. Don't make anybody else feel like you're too much. And
that's right.
now there's a
But,
big difference between that and having humility and being big, because you can
yeah,
do both.
yeah. And that's part of the integration,
It is. It
owning it,
is.
just
Oh,
owning it.
yeah. Own your skill set. Own your power.
Yeah.
And when you really own it, you're not in somebody's face. You're not bragging. You're doing it in service to others, which
Right. But
is.
you also use the word humility, which I think is huge. It's
Mm-hmm.
somebody said to me one time, oh, you're just like really fun to be around. You tell it like it is. And I said, well, it hasn't always been easy. And she started to laugh. And I said, no. You don't get it. It hasn't really been easy being me. And what I've learned over the years is people respond to people who are authentic,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is what you and I, how we've connected, right?
Right.
That's
Exactly.
hard. I had a program that didn't work. God damn it, you know. I had to let it go, and I really was banging my head against the wall. And so that makes you real.
Yeah.
You know, believe me, I've had plenty of failures in this thing, and I don't really. It's only a failure if I haven't learned from it.
Exactly. I mean, you said all the coaching, it wasn't a waste of money, even though it was a lot of money. And
Yeah.
I think, knowing what to take and what to leave behind, like I was telling you about this course I'm taking now, it's not all of it is resonating for me. And that's okay. It's not going to
Mhm.
resonate. Every single bit of it is not going to resonate for every single person in the program. We have 500 coaches taking this program.
Wow.
But what it's helping with is mindfulness and saboteur and rising to your highest self, which is something I'm always interested in
Yeah.
growing in,
Yeah.
and exactly why I'm talking to you today. All right, next question. What is the best advice you can give to a woman who wants to become more empowered?
True mental health is not a natural sport. It's a learned sport, and it's a mind and a body experience. So in our culture, we're like cut off at our head. People ask me, "What do you do?" I teach people how to get below the neck, because you have a universe here below the neck. And once you learn like where your power center is, for those of us who do yoga, if you think about Tadasana, the mountain pose, where you're standing up tall and your legs are engaged, and your tanti and your power center is right in the middle of your pelvis, and you stand tall, and you imagine there's a piece of string that's coming from the top of your head, and that's the what was her name? That power pose. She's talking about power poses.
Yes, Amy Cuddy.
Amy Cutting, yes. And
Mm-hmm.
so these things are real. They're real.
Yeah.
And when you can access that part of you, and even if you're feeling scared, and even if you're getting ready to do something that kind of has your stomach and, kind of knots, if you get into that power pose and you kind of tune into where your power is, and then you stand tall and you go out there and you act as if you're feeling confident. And at the same time, over time, you begin to start to be confident.
That body work is so essential. So
Yes.
essential. That's great advice. All right, now we're going to go to what advice you would give to your younger self.
You actually were quite thin at 13. When I go back and look at pictures, I used to think I was like I think it would be to work on just being real. Even when vulnerability was really hard for me. I was a perfectionist and a control freak and a goody two shoes, and wanted my father to be proud of me, and many of those kinds of things that kept my spirit down. And I think the most important thing is to really to have been more honest with myself. If I could have paid attention to some of the red flags, I would not have married the person that I married. That kind of stuff. It's the honesty, the real honest. What's the truth?
Yeah. Yeah, totally hear that. And I want to also say that if you were not a perfectionist and all those other things, you probably wouldn't have started so many businesses and, kept moving. I think that there is something about that seems to be a thread with all the women that I've interviewed. They all have this like inner drive, and it's learning to manage those parts of us
That's
that
right.
can be sabotaging, but they also are motivating. So they have both abilities.
Yes, they do. That high achiever. I don't really see that there are any other options.
Yeah.
Just of who I am.
Yeah, exactly. All right. And finally, Tina, how would you like to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for somebody that was truly helpful to children, to other people, that I offered something that made their lives better.
Well, you're doing it, and you're continuing to do it. And you are just bringing so many gifts to the world. So thank you for
Thank
coming on
you.
the show today and showing people what the journey is to living up to your potential.
Here we go. That's it. Thanks, Sandy. Thanks so much for having me. This is so much fun.
If you would like to step more fully into your value, grab a free copy of The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a Woman of Value on my website, thewomanofvalue.com. Just click the link at the top of the homepage. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to click the subscribe button in your listening app. And if there's something in this episode that inspired you, please share it with others, because the more we share these inspirational stories, the more women of value we will have in this world. I'll see you next time.